Overall, Bitcoin is undervalued. And I think even at 100K, 150, 200, it's still undervalued. This drop, I believe, is related to the tariff war. American, Canadian, Mexican, well, we're all gonna tariff each other. And it's just panic. So Bitcoin being the only 24/7 liquid market is the only thing that can react immediately.
$1 million Bitcoin, Samson. When's that gonna happen?
My guess is it's gonna be this year.
It's gonna be this year.
Bitcoin's trajectory is becoming clearer than ever, and Samson Mow has been calling it for years. With demand surging from institutions, ETFs, and even nation-states, the supply shock is inevitable. But what does that mean for Bitcoin's price? Could we be on the verge of an explosive move past $1 million? In today's video, Samson Mow breaks down why Bitcoin remains drastically undervalued, why altcoins are a distraction, and how the strategic Bitcoin reserve could be the catalyst for a financial paradigm shift. Stick around, because if he's right, we're about to witness a historic market shakeup. If you want to stay ahead of the game in this Bitcoin revolution, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next.
So I've been predicting 1 million for a while, and hopefully I'll hit sometime, but I believe this pullback is very normal because the altcoin market was overheated. If you look at XRP, Ripple, it was $3. That's ridiculous. With Bitcoin at 97 or so, Ripple is still at 260. And then you have Solana and everything. Everything is overpriced right now for the altcoins. So I think it's normal. We come down, they shake off, and then we go back up. Bitcoin dominance increases again. But Bitcoin dominance is really intellect measurement, like how much money is being allocated to altcoins. And that needs to drop before we can take off again, I believe. But overall, Bitcoin is undervalued. And I think even at 100K, 150, 200, it's still undervalued.
And what's the case for it being undervalued?
Well, there's just so much demand for Bitcoin right now from MicroStrategy, from the ETFs, from nation states, from ordinary people buying and hodling, that I don't think people have fully realized that most of the year's supply of mined Bitcoin is already gone a few times over. So you have to understand there is ultimate scarcity in Bitcoin. And I believe the understanding of ultimate scarcity is very far away still. People just can't wrap their heads around there only being 21 million. And when the price drops, people kind of feel confident that I can get it later. But then Bitcoin rips and then there is no later. Like imagine being able to buy Bitcoin at $10,000 a coin. Again, it's not possible. And this milestone of 100,000 will be gone again in time.
And you say that there's a lot of demand, right? There's the talk of the strategic Bitcoin reserve, which some news came out that Ripple tried to sabotage it in some way. It seems like we still have 180 days as a community to kind of fight back on that front. And of course, MicroStrategy buying Bitcoin, a lot of companies following in the footsteps of MicroStrategy, like Metaplanet, like Semler Scientific, and they're all following the MicroStrategy strategy, and it seems like all their stocks are performing because of it. Salvador continues to buy massive amounts of Bitcoin. My question to you is, why is the price still at $97,000 if we have all this massive purchasing going on? Is it like a flush?
So there's two things I would say. One is there are obviously OGs or old hodlers that are going to sell something and, buy a house, maybe enjoy life a bit. So there will always be some coins that are sold outside of the mine supply. But there's also roughly 2 million coins that sit on exchange for market making, trading, and arbitrage. And those 2 million coins, it's dropping obviously. Now it was at more than 2 million before, but now it's at around 2 million. But that is enough for the coins to drop the market. And a lot of it has to do with Bitcoin being a 24/7 market as well. So this drop, I believe, is related to the tariff war. American, Canadian, Mexican, well, we're all going to tariff each other. And it's just panic. So Bitcoin being the only 24/7 liquid market is the only thing that can react immediately. So it's sort of like the market sentiment is taken out on Bitcoin. We're the first to move, the most volatile and the biggest move. And then the equities markets and everything else follows after that when the markets open. Such an antiquated concept, right? But that's what it is. But going back to the point, those 2 million coins is enough to move the market a little bit. And the impact of those 2 million coins, I believe, is becoming less and less pronounced as we increase hodlers. So if you break down the schema of who impacts Bitcoin price, you have the hodlers. Zero impact. They're just sitting on the coins. And in ways you can look at it, they're coiling up that spring. Then you have the buyers, the people that are DCAing either like by day or by month, or you can say MicroStrategy is also in the DCA category, and hodling, but they're actively in acquisition mode, and Metaplanet, and like you said. Then you have the traders, which is kind of that 2 million coins. So that is kind of what is driving the market. And Bitcoin will always be volatile because you have that slush fund of coins on exchanges. But that is going to be drained over time. And we do see that. And it makes it more pronounced, the coil up effect from the DCAers and the hodlers.
What do you think happens to the price of Bitcoin if the strategic Bitcoin reserve thing does go through in the United States? It looks like it's going to happen on the state level before the federal level.
Well, as Adam Back says, that's the path to 1 million.
$1 million Bitcoin, Samson. When's that going to happen?
My guess is it's going to be this year.
It's going to be this year.
You look at all the factors that we're facing. You have
That's a 10x.
Bitcoin has 17x in the past. There is no upper bound to Bitcoin. So there are people that talk about diminishing returns, right? But if it's a step change, just like the failure of the German mark, it's not a gradual thing and there's no upper bound. It's just gone. And you use a new thing now, right? It's like, yeah, we don't use horses for transportation anymore. You know, we came here on a car or in airplanes and whatnot. So we use the new thing. And Bitcoin is that new thing because it's 100, if not 1,000 times better than anything else we've used as money in human history. But back to the point, what do we have? We have MicroStrategy buying non-stop. We have ETFs, which are a doorway to legacy fiat money. If you go back to all the previous bull runs, where we get bogged down is the exchanges, because that's the touch point, right? That's how you convert fiat into Bitcoin. And if you remember back in the old bull runs, it was like Kraken's backlog for KYCing people was 3 months long. Coinbase, same thing. That's the bottleneck, because to comply as an exchange, you have to KYC everyone, and you don't keep 1,000-person KYC team, right? You have to keep a team that you can feed, and you can't scale it up that quickly. So that's kind of where it tapers off. But with the ETFs, there is no bottleneck anymore. Central banks can buy ETFs. So any demand for Bitcoin can now be satiated without any problem whatsoever. And that is really big. That's why actually I thought 2024 was going to be the year we hit 1 million, because I don't think people fully understand how big that is. Central banks can buy ETFs. There is no barrier for fiat money entering Bitcoin. But I think this year we'll hit it, since we missed last year. But you have MicroStrategy, you have ETFs, you have the removal of the barrier, you have nation states, and what else? There's just so much going on, like real adoption of Bitcoin. So I just can't see it not hitting 1 million this year. And the other thing is, you see a lot of people predicting prices, right? They like to be cautious and realistic and say, yeah, it can get to 150. It can get to 200. It can get to 250. Because I think they want to sound reasonable. Nobody wants to be the crazy guy saying it's going to 10x, like me. They want to be, you know, I'm a serious person with realistic projections. But Bitcoin is not a realistic thing. It's a zero-sum game. Either you're going to use Bitcoin or you're going to starve. So it's all or none. And when you get to different levels, like when you get to 100K, when you get to 100K, it's different, right? When you get to 200K, the world again looks very, very different. Just close your eyes and imagine, what does the world look like when Bitcoin is at 500K? That's you're reaching half of gold's market cap at that point, you know? That will demonetize gold if it doesn't get demonetized earlier, because there's talk of you know, the US selling gold to buy Bitcoin to fund their reserves, because that would take out their enemies who have been accumulating gold for the last decade, right? But disregard that. Bitcoin is sitting at 500K. We are the second largest asset now behind gold. It's a very different landscape. And at that point, do you think most people would still want to sell their Bitcoin to get fiat? Or would most people now insist on being paid in Bitcoin? I think it's the latter. So from there, you just 2x.
Yeah.
And then you're number one.
And you know, it's interesting because I come from the bullish school of thought too, but my thought process is a little bit different. This cycle reminds me of 2017. And 2017, we went from $1,000 in January to the end of 2017, we went to 20K.
Yeah.
No one had any idea
Yeah.
it was going to happen in January. In fact, in January, the price stayed at $1,000.
Yeah.
2021 happened, and I believe 2021 was artificially cut short because of the China mining ban, because of FTX, because of Celsius.
Yeah.
And I think people have forgotten what a true Bitcoin bull market feels like.
Yeah.
And I'm getting the same type of kind of consensus understanding, which is 150K, 200K Bitcoin. You and I both know that when everybody on X or Twitter is calling for the same price predictions, Bitcoin does the exact effing opposite. So either we're going to underperform, which I doubt, or we're going to overperform, which no one is expecting more than 200,000, more than 300,000.
Yeah.
That's my thought process at kind of getting to, I don't know if it's 1 million, but 500,000. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we hit it this year.
I think it's this, I don't know what to call it. It's like a precipice effect, you know? Like you're standing on the edge of the cliff. People are scared because, yeah, we can fall a lot from 100K. And that's why you kind of like hover at that area for a while, because it's scary looking down. Like, what if we go to 70? And you remember when we had a little dip, everyone was saying, oh, we're going to go back to 70.
Yeah.
But when things solidify, then you kind of go up. And everyone that was panicking and looking down, looking off that precipice, they've been left behind already. And because the supply is so limited right now and the demand is so high, it's just going to shoot up. And you're going to see that kind of 2017 face melting shock and awe rise in Bitcoin price.
Absolutely. And I think the reason that it's because no one's seeing it. Everyone has, again, this general consensus of the price. No one's really expecting it. And Bitcoin tends to do the things that everyone least expects, especially if this strategic Bitcoin reserve thing comes to fruition. Like, I think it's going to happen, you know, the price is just going to 2x or 3x overnight.
Yeah.
Because it's essentially a rubber stamp of approval by the most powerful government on the face of the planet. Now, my question to you is, what happens when central banks that have the ability to essentially create money out of nothing start using that ability to buy something that has absolute scarcity like Bitcoin?
Omega candles.
LA is coming out of a volcano.
Perhaps.
So, yeah, but what happens? What breaks?
I think they can go for a while and print, because the world seems to takes time to adjust. If you look back at the lockdowns and the pandemic or plandemic, when they shut everything down, the prices didn't jump. It took 2 to 3 years, right? For kind of the normal person to understand, or even anybody in the supply chain to understand what's fully happened. And then you saw the inflation come. So all the money printing, the shutdown of economies, it didn't really kick in until 2 years later almost, right? And I think it's the same. Everything, it takes time for the world to adjust to. They haven't really fully adjusted or understood the impact of the ETFs and central banks being able to gain exposure to the ETFs. We also forgot to talk about the Czech Republic Bank, central bank. They've approved buying now too. So what you're talking about, Nico, is it's like on the cusp. But yeah, they can probably print and buy for some time, because the ordinary man in the street is not going to fully understand what's going on. The pot is boiling too slowly for them to realize. If they would have understood the impact, you know, they would have probably bought Bitcoin already just from trying to hedge against inflation alone.